Hello! So, I have gotten a lot of questions about Fulbright and my project and what I'm doing. I mean, that's to be expected. Every time I talk to someone and they're like, oh, why are you in Ireland? I start with my project and then it's just like 7 of the same questions. And then my friends and family back home have a lot of the same questions and I find myself like explaining the same thing over and over again. So I thought I would make this video kind of answering as many of the questions as I remembered and wrote down on my laptop here. And then also I was thinking this would be helpful for anyone considering applying for Fulbright or who just wants to know what Fulbright is. So I hope this helps. So we're gonna do it in like an FAQ sort of style. I've got a list and we're just gonna go through that. So the first question that I get, every time is what exactly are you doing? So the elevator pitch is essentially I applied for and received a Fulbright grant, and so I will explain what Fulbright is in a little bit. But basically, I'm going to Ireland for 9 months, and I'm doing a project on knitting and wearable technology. So I'm focusing on documenting historical Irish knitwear techniques and stitches, and then integrating that with technology to make some sort of wearable technology prototype. And so I'm in Ireland for those 9 months doing that. And then the next question would be, what is Fulbright? That also comes up pretty much every time. So Fulbright is a grant that you apply for. And there's like basically 2 versions. You can either apply to be a Fulbright student or a Fulbright scholar. So I'm a Fulbright student, and that means that I applied right after undergraduate, like graduating from undergraduate university. And I'm going to do this 9-month-long project. A lot of times people get a Fulbright grant to do like a 1-year master's program or a longer program, and it just basically pays for 1 year. I'm doing what's called an open study award. And so that means I design my own project. It's not necessarily affiliated with a university. I mean, I have a couple of universities that I have found professors that I'm going to be working with, so I'm sort of affiliated with those universities, but I'm not actually attending classes at that university. The other option is to be a Fulbright scholar, and that's if you are in academia, but you're like a professor or a staff member or something, and you'd be doing some sort of project or degree or something. I don't really know. I'm not a Fulbright scholar. But yes, I'm a Fulbright student. And Fulbright is an international organization, and so you apply to be going to a different country to do this project or master's program or whatever it is. When you apply, you like apply within your country, but you specifically apply to a project in another country. And so there's something called the Fulbright Commission, and I work with the Irish Fulbright Commission because I'm in Ireland. So when I have questions or doing anything related to like immigration or anything like that, I go to the Irish Fulbright Commission. And then a little sub question is, how much money do you get with Fulbright? And then how long of a project is it? So for me particularly, the Open Study Award has a cap at 15,000 euros. I got just under that at like 14,800 euros, something like that. And when you're applying and you're on the Fulbright website, it'll tell you like what the cap is for whatever you're applying for, and it'll tell you like how long the grant is. For me, it's 9 months. And then describe your project in greater detail. So I could talk about this for hours. I could make an entire video on it. I could make 7 different videos on it. Basically, the condensed version is, for 3 months, I'm going to be traveling around Ireland. My plan is to go to a different area, so like a different city, a different town, a different section of Ireland every week. So I'll be going to like 12 or 15 or so. I came over September 20th. Well, I came over a couple of days before September 20th, but my grant started on the 20th. And I am planning on going back for the holidays on December 15th. So between those 2 dates, I'm going to be traveling around Ireland and trying to find Irish history related to knitting. So I'm trying to find, people who've been knitting their entire lives who maybe don't necessarily use knitting patterns but have created their own stitches, or they learn their stitches from their grandmothers or their great-grandmas or even their moms, whatever. And I'm looking for the really historical knit stitches, especially ones that haven't necessarily been documented elsewhere. And I want to make what I'm calling like an open source encyclopedia of historical Irish knitting stitches and techniques. And so that'll just be like, I'll take a picture of it and I'll make the knit program for it and have, a description, that kind of thing, and put it on the online so that people can, look at this. And I'm also going to basically translate these hand stitches, right? Because you're knitting with needles with your hands, into machine stitches. So if you're unfamiliar with knitwear as an industry, most knitwear is made on machines. One of those types of machines is called a Shimaseki machine. And I learned how to program those machines in undergrad. It's great. They're very, very cool machines. But I am going to make those hand knit stitches into programs for the Shimaseki machine. So I'm essentially translating from hand to machine, and that will also be in the encyclopedia. So within those 3 months, I'll be documenting those knit stitches, and then we'll have an encyclopedia. That's the first set of deliverables. And then I'll be coming back early January, and I'll be here until June 20th would make it exactly 9 months, so somewhere around that date. I will be in one place. I will no longer be backpacking around Ireland. I will be in one place, hopefully with access to a Shimaseki machine, and I will be knitting some of these knit stitches and techniques in a way that I can incorporate technology into it. So I want to make a wearable technology prototype, potentially multiple, but let's be realistic and say one. Something that will actually help people, so whether it's in the medical field or it's prosthetics or biometrics, something like that, that will utilize the unique stitches that I have documented to make really interesting and unique wearable technology. And so in those 6 months, I'll be working in a lab, I'll be knitting and prototyping and doing electronics and all that kind of stuff. And by the end of that, I'm hoping to have some sort of prototype, possibly a publication, something like that, related to knitwear in the wearable electronics industry. So that is essentially my project. And then my next common question that people ask is, how did you come up with that project? Because it's kind of weird. It's there's a lot going on, right? And so the simple answer for you is, I just did. But in reality, as an undergraduate, I double majored in fashion design and physics, so I have a lot of experience with knitwear. I also have experience with electronics. My senior design portfolio, my final project for my fashion design degree, was wearable electronics, but it was pretty electronics, so there was lights and moving things with motors and da-da-da-da, but nothing that was helping people, right? It was just fun and cool. And so when looking at the Fulbright grant, I was wanting to do something further with that, but in a way that it would help people. And so that's kind of how I came up with the second half, right, was the wearable electronics part. But the really unique part is integrating these historical knitwear stitches. And the reason I chose to do knitwear, other than the fact that I love it and it's interesting and there's programming involved, is that a lot of the wearable technologies, research and stuff these days, is done with wovens. And so I wanted to explore this other avenue, especially since when you're creating knitwear, it's a lot more of an engineering sort of thing that you're doing, rather than with wovens. You can't engineer the fabric as much. You can make things look pretty, but they all have essentially the same properties. Whereas knitwear, you can do some crazy stuff with knitwear. You're really building it up from the very bottom. So I decided that I wanted to do knitwear and wearable electronics, and then the more I looked into Irish knitwear and stuff, the richer history I saw that it had, and so I wanted to add that little bit of history and culture into my project. So this next question that I get mainly from my father every day is what are you doing? Especially right now at the very beginning. For context, I'm filming this my second week in Ireland, so I haven't really gotten into the knit stitches yet. It's proven pretty difficult to source people who are doing this historical knitwear. And so the question is what do you do all day? And so the answer is, I send out a lot of emails trying to find different people that have this knitwear experience, trying to find Shimaseki machines in country, which is very, very difficult. I've connected with a lot of different professors at universities, and so I'm emailing back and forth with them. I have meetings all the time with these different professors, and I also go to knit groups to try and, source these knitwear techniques. I'm really immersing myself in just the knitwear culture in Ireland because I think that's going to inform my project in a beneficial way. And then, you would be surprised at the amount of logistical stuff that I have to do every day. Traveling around this much means that I have to figure out where I'm going, how I'm going to get there, how I'm going to pay for it, where I'm going to live. And because I'm on a strict budget, it takes twice as long because I'm trying to find the deals. And so that's a lot of it. And then just dealing with everyday problems. Yeah, so most of my time these days is spent, I guess, in communications, which is weird because I always made fun of people in college that like majored in communications. Like, that's not a real major. But here I am talking with people all day trying to make progress on my project, when in reality I would love to just like be doing something with my hands, like doing the actual knitting. But currently I'm sourcing everything. I'm trying to find it. We're doing some investigative reporting. The next question I get a lot, well, not a lot, I would say I sometimes get this, is like, how far ahead are you in planning everything in terms of like where you're going to be next, what you're going to be doing? And to tell you the truth, currently I have nothing planned past tomorrow. I have hopes and ideas for plans. I have the next 2 places I would like to go. Don't know how I'm going to get there, don't know where I'm living. So I'm hoping it'll be a little bit more future planning once I get like my LEAP card and get a few other things organized. But currently I plan like a couple days ahead, maybe. Next question is, how do you pick your places? So I do have a list of places I'm going to go, and I have a very vague, like very, very vague plan of when I want to go to different places, other than like, after tomorrow, I like don't know for a little while. But a lot of it is based on when I have meetings with certain people in those areas, or there's a couple of different events I'm going to. So those things are all on specified days. And so I'm like, okay, we'll put, some time on either side of those events in that area to do, the talking with people and the knit, sourcing and going to knitting groups and that kind of stuff. Going to museums, especially if they have textile stuff. So that's how I pick most of it. And then whenever I have, little chunks that don't have a place already predetermined, I do have a list of places that I have determined have good historical knitwear potential. And so I'll just pop one of those in there. Basically, whatever's cheapest to get to at that time, whatever I'm closest to or whatever, I'll put that in there. And then the next question that I would say I get just about as much as I get, like, what are you doing? What is Fulbright? And that is, why did you choose Ireland specifically? And so the base of this is that when you apply to Fulbright, you have to pick the country. You can't just say, I want to go to like any of these countries. It's not like applying for college. You have to pick one. And so I chose Ireland because it fit with my project, right? I needed something with like historical knitwear, something with like strong knitwear vibes, essentially. And there's definitely more places other than Ireland, right? So I was looking at which countries had like an open study award rather than, just if you're going to get a master's degree. That narrowed it down more. And then like the award advisor at my university, like she's in charge of like helping you like apply for scholarships and stuff. She said, don't apply to anything in the UK because it's way too competitive. And I was like, oh wow, that's a lot of confidence you have in me. I mean, to be fair, I realized Fulbright was a thing 2 weeks before the application was due, and it's a pretty lengthy application. And so she was like, we don't have time to get your application in place, like good enough for the UK application. I don't know if I would have gotten in if I wanted to do UK stuff, because the UK actually does have more Shimaseki machines, more capability it looks like. But Ireland has really special knitwear history. And so it really came down to that, right? Like, I'm not going to go, I don't know. I mean, a lot of places have really impressive technology or really interesting cultural heritage when it comes to textiles. But Ireland had both, and they also had a lot of really interesting research going on in the universities related to wearable technology. And then also the bonus of the fact that Ireland speaks English, so that I don't have to learn a new language while I'm also trying to do the rest of this project. That was great. Sub question there. A lot of people are like, isn't the accent really hard to understand? I don't think so. I think the Irish accent is like one of the easiest accents to understand. I cannot understand the Scottish accent for the life of me. It takes so much brain power to listen to a Scottish person, and I like try so hard, and I'm just like, what are you saying? But no, I would say the Irish accent's really easy to understand. The next question I get is, what do you hope to get out of this? Like this whole experience. To be honest, I have no idea. We're just kind of going with it. I mean, I think I'm going to learn a lot. I think it's a really fun project for me just because it combines two of my biggest interests, which is like textiles and then electronics, physics. You know, that's like kind of together. So I think I'll learn a lot academically. I'm definitely learning a lot just as a person, you know, having to be organized and move around the country and, you know, live out of a backpack for 3 months. In terms of like career aspirations, I have committed to a PhD program for physics. That will happen next year. I what's it called when you push it off? I deferred for a year for Fulbright. And I think this will probably help me in my PhD as well because, I mean, the electronics is obviously good to keep doing. That'll be helpful for physics. But just having this own project where there's no real accountability other than myself is good for doing a PhD. I would say, if anything, physically, I would love to have some sort of prototype or even publication related to knitwear in wearable electronics. Since there's not a ton of research being done in that overlap, I think it would be great to start the discourse in that area. I don't necessarily think the prototype I end up with, you know, over the course of 6 months of prototyping, will be able to go to the market and help people right away, right? But I think just starting the process is important. And then the big question of all, the one that gives me an existential crisis, you know, every week, is what's next? Well, my physics PhD. Yeah, there we go. Those were all the questions I wrote down, everything I could think of when I was coming up with that list this morning. If you have other questions that I did not answer, leave a comment, or I mean, if you have my phone number, just send me a WhatsApp. I'm happy to answer them. If there's enough of them, I'll make another video. Otherwise, I'll just WhatsApp everybody back, or, you know, write in the comments. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'm Annan Island, and you've been watching an FAQ.